WaterNet as a SADC subsidiary institution with the mandate of capacity building for water resource management is mandated by SADC member state to work toward capacity building in integrated water resources management through education, short professional training courses, collaborative research, but also outreach. And as part of our outreach, that's why we convene each and every year a symposium where researchers, practitioners, water scientists, upcoming and early career water professionals are put together to present and share the result of their findings and of their day-to-day activities.
WaterNet is a trust. It's a trust that is governed by a board of trustees, but it is a trust that is answerable to a network body. So we are a member organization. So this trust has members of universities and institutions that focus on water resources. So these members form a body which meets every year at an annual general meeting to which the Board of Trustees report. And the Board of Trustees is led by the chairperson. And then it also has a secretariat which services both the Board of Trustees and the general membership, and the network, if I may put it that way.
In terms of operation, it's good to realize that currently WaterNet is in its fourth phase, labeled co-creation of regional water solution in a changing environment. So WaterNet came to the realization that for you to come up with a solution, no matter how smart you are, no matter how learned you are, you can't sustainably come up with such solution without the dimension of co-creation. So you come up with solution by bringing together those for whom you think that you're going to develop that solution. But in addition to that, there is climate change, which is increasing pressure on the limited freshwater resources that we have. So we can no longer talk about water solution while ignoring the changes that are occurring as a result of climate change.
GWPSA has been a partner with WaterNet in hosting this symposium, I think since 2005. So when I was the executive secretary, it was from 2003 to 2016, so it was 13 years that I was with GWP, and 11 of those years I sat on the WaterNet board. So I was very privileged to be part of WaterNet family and processes and decision making. And I think the most important thing in that was this partnership with Global Water Partnership Southern Africa. That was it was very welcomed by GWP, and I think it was a value also to the WaterNet network as well. For me, the symposium is really about reaching out. First of all, it's a platform for the young students to get out there and to present their work, their research, and it's a very big event for them. And I think as part of the efforts to build research capacity in the Southern African region, it's a very key event for that in terms of building the students. Also, when GWP came in, our efforts were to try and start linking the science with the policymakers in the region, primarily the water policymakers. So, in fact, water, environment, climate came in as well. But we tried to host events in the Symposia every year to bring some of the government officials from the member states in the region under the SADC umbrella, so that we could start getting some of this useful science being debated with the policymakers. Because often there's a big gap. The policymakers need the scientists need the policymakers for their work to go somewhere, but you need to bring them together. And this is what GWP tried to do in forging that link. And I think, there were dedicated efforts and sessions held with policymakers, and we tried to match that with some of the big research initiatives. I recall for 2 years running, we were doing some work with an international challenge program, and that was focused in the Limpopo Basin. So we brought some of the commissioners and the technical officials from the member states of the 4 countries of the Limpopo Basin to engage with the scientists on some of the research findings. And I think that's the most important thing of where the Symposium needs to continue to build, is to make sure that yes, your students are getting the platform to share their work, to face critique, to engage, to stand up and defend their work, which is good experience as researchers, but also for them to see early on where their science, where their research is going to make life better in a village, for a national department of water. Their science goes somewhere. So, and I think that is a strongly emerging theme now in the last couple of years, that we're really looking at where can the science be applied. But we need to get the policymakers and the practitioners, the water managers, the farmers, we need to get them in at the beginning of the research. The students need to realize that they're working in a development context, and we need their solutions to go out into the field.
Well, in 1992, it seems a very long time ago, but that was the first United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development in Rio de Janeiro. It was a very, very big conference. And a couple of very important things were already launched there, like the problems of climate change and of biodiversity and loss of biodiversity. But another very important element was the unsustainable management of water. And the concept in 1992 was raised so-called integrated water resource management, what everybody is talking about now. But that requires people at a high academic level, because you have to understand economics, water, social issues, environment, water supply and sanitation, but also irrigation and drainage. It requires scientists and engineers who have a full grasp of the complex field of water. And that can only be done at an academic level of masters or even a PhD. When I started working in this region, and I have already worked here since the middle 70s, so I know the region very well. I knew that the education here was essentially bachelor's education, and mostly disciplinary, like irrigation engineers, water supply engineers, dam building engineers. So very subsectoral. And that was could very well be done at bachelor's level, because you learned how to deal with specific problems. But this integrated problem of how do we make priorities, how do we balance all these things, that didn't exist. So when I came here in Zimbabwe in the beginning of the 1990s, after this Rio de Janeiro conference, I tried to convince universities and ministries that we needed an education at master level. And at first people didn't see that. So it took quite a lot of time to convince not only Zimbabweans, but also South Africans, Tanzanians, Mozambicans, people from Botswana, Namibia, that they needed this kind of education. But no single university could offer it. They could offer certain specializations. certain universities very good at irrigation and draining or water supply and sanitation. So then came about the idea of making a joint program, that all universities would jointly make a master's degree, which would cover all these subjects. And the pre-runner of WaterNet, we started here in Zimbabwe, at the University of Zimbabwe, in 1995, with a water resources engineering and management program. And after that had run for 4 years, the time became ripe for a more regional program, and we started to formulate WaterNet. And the idea of WaterNet was that there were 2 places in the region where you already had masters. One was in the University of Zimbabwe, which we had set up in the pre-runner project, and one in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam. So if in these universities we registered a masters, we could then ask the students to do their specialization in different universities in the network. For instance, water and people, the social side of water in Western Cape. Water supply and sanitation in Windhoek, but they are very advanced water supply and sanitation systems. The irrigation and drainage in Maputo, etc. In this way, we could build up a whole network. And this was discussed with a lot of people in the region. The Dutch government was interested in funding it. And in 2000, so it's a couple of years later, we could sign the founding document of WaterNet. And those people were present there. I remember that the present king of the Netherlands, the Prince of Orange, here in Victoria Falls, on the other side of Williamstown, we signed the document for WaterNet. That was in 2000.
Basically, we can say in 2000, when there was a very big, if you remember, a very big flood in Mozambique. I think we saw that time some people floating in the trees and the water and all this thing. It was very devastating in Mozambique. And the biggest problem was, one of the problems was, how do we inform your downstream member of the same region, for example, in this case SADC, that they will have to open the gates. Maybe in this case it was Kariba, that they had to open the gates because the water coming from the Kafue was more than what they expected. So they had to open the gates. And to open the gates, they could not inform in time Mozambique. And as a result of that, quite a number of people actually flooded, and some people lost their lives, and people lost their the services were lost, but of course they lost goods and services. So I think this was one of the areas we stopped. We started to say, well, let us have an informed situation, that we have our young researchers and students research on the issue of water resource management in the region. That's how I actually started. In the first Symposium, it was in Maputo, in 2000. Yeah, 2000. So actually it was somehow brought about by the incidents of the flood.
After that, we went to Cape Town, and etc. And this every year we have a symposium which goes around the region, and which every country is proud to organize, to show all their scientific advances, to discuss their problems, and for all the new students to present their work. And you now see that we have about 300 people coming from all over the region to discuss their work, interact with ministries, people from government, interact with private sector, public sector, NGOs. And it has become something very big, which is unique in the world.
The concept of the annual symposium, with its rotation actually, from country to country. We have 15 members of the SADC and the Eastern Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and the 14 countries in the SADC block. So it's rotation. Every year it goes to another country. This one. But the idea of having this symposium was to compare and to share knowledge accumulated through research, especially applied research in terms of water resources in the region. So that's how it started. So this is where we meet and we present papers. Our students are presenting papers, researchers are presenting papers, which are basically in terms of our mandate. Our mandate is integrated water resources.
First of all, the WaterNet Secretariat runs a call of interest to actually run the symposium amongst our members. So the network members of WaterNet bid to run the symposium. And if they win the bid, from there on, with the support of the Secretariat, they put together the program, both the technical program or the academic program of the presentations that are going to take place, but also they have to put together a bid, a support proposal to partners in the water sector. So we just partner. It includes, therefore, coming up with an academic program, and it also includes coming up with a fundraising strategy of how the whole symposium is going to be funded. And then, of course, running it as we are for the 4 days, it includes coming up with a technical program of having chairs and adjudicators, because we also have within this symposium, we have a competition of young scientists who are 35 years or younger. They will be competing for the best presentation, the best poster in the different sections that they will be presenting on. So we have people judging those presentations, so you have to put that team together as well.
When we started organizing this last year, we thought 1 year was quite enough time, but time runs quite fast. There are a number of things to put in place. You have to find the venue, and then you have to announce that the workshop, the symposium, will be running on such a day, and call for people to submit their papers and to register. Now it's that money which comes in when people are registering and paying, that you have to try and secure the venue and run all the expenses. So you'll be thinking about what excursions people will do, which bands people will do, a lot of other organizations, which performers are going to help you, which people are going to help you capture it in terms of videos and so forth, and all that takes money. So in organization, we try to publish this as quick as possible so that money can come in, and we start. It helps us to run around and make phone calls and organizing. So basically, what is involved is trying to put everything together.
So the International Scientific Committee is meant to guide the overall scientific content of the project, or the symposium actually. And it has, unlike many symposia, a very light touch on the overall content. The theme is set by the local organizing committee. The opening sessions are in the control of the local organizing committee. So what the scientific committee does is it just guides the general review process at a very high level. And then when the program is being developed, it has some input into the way the themes are organized, we check whether there's major overlap between the themes, the scheduling, and some guidance on that sort of thing. The themes, the sub-themes within the conference are guided to some extent by the International Scientific Committee, in that we like to check that they're aligned with the SADC research agenda, because WaterNet is a SADC subsidiary organization, and WaterNet developed the current research agenda in the Regional Strategic Action Plan 4. Probably the most significant input of the scientific committee over the past 5 years was that we introduced a scientific plenary into the symposium, I think from Malawi, which was 4 or 5 years ago. And that's been a very popular innovation, because what it does is it gives people an opportunity to hear from selected speakers who are working across disciplines and across the region. So it sets a nice context for the more focused studies that follow. A lot of the people have come to me and said it's really nice have a session where we look at integrative presentations at a high scientific level, which provide input and research which is applicable across the region.
Well, I think for the reasons that I've mentioned already, in terms of, if you look at the students, there's impact there. Just in terms of their own capacity development as young researchers. That's the one thing, the platform, the impact is there in terms of this is their first international engagement for many of them. And this is a tremendous opportunity, not only for their sharing their research, but also engaging in Africa. You know, we often don't engage enough with our neighboring countries. So that international exchange, the interest from Europe, from America, that exchange is also useful. We share amongst each other in the region, but also beyond that. And there's been tremendous support from the Dutch, for example, since WaterNet's inception. And that has been useful. You'll see that there's still international collaborative research projects. And I was chairing a session at this symposium also on the Afri-Alliance initiative, where it's trying to forge science linkages, partnership linkages between Europe and Africa to find solutions for climate change and water management. So I think that it remains a very important platform for this kind of exchange between continents. Maybe we must bring Asia, as someone said in the opening, where's the Middle East, where's Asia? And maybe we need to dedicate more efforts, because these are big players in the world, and I don't doubt that we have lots to share, but I think that's an area, a potential area of growth.
I mean, I think from a strategic point of view, Water Research Commission looks after the water resources of South Africa in terms of research that might be lacking, that we'll need to manage our water resources properly, and not just obviously our water resources, but if you think about the water cycle, we're thinking about agriculture, we're thinking about drinking water treatment as well, maintaining that quality. And WaterNet is positioned in such a way that it covers the whole of Southern Africa. And as South Africa, we need to understand what is happening within our region to make decisions that are not only going to influence us, but also obviously influence the region at large. So as an institution that deals with water, it's especially important that we are here. The conference is for us to meet researchers, meet academics, meet industry partners, and figure out what is lacking with regard to our water resources in the sub-region. And I think also it's to also network, meet people who are sort of in the same kind of field as me, and see how we can leverage funding. As we know, funding is an issue for research, and we don't want situations where we're all doing pockets of similar research within the area. If we can converge and leverage the funds that we have, as different countries within the region, and then support research, I think definitely it makes it a better environment in terms of getting more for the buck of money that you're spending. So from that perspective, definitely. And then for me personally, I like young researchers, so I will be adjudicating the oral presentations for young researchers as well as the posters, and it gives me an opportunity to encourage them, to motivate them. I think from an academic point of view, it might not necessarily be something that is the flavor of the month right now, given obviously funding constraints with regard to our research, but it gives me an opportunity to motivate. I've had my PhD for 10 years, so I can also speak from that experience of how you go from an undergraduate to a master's to a postgraduate level, and how you navigate that kind of situation. So yeah, that I'm also looking forward to that, meeting lots of young scientists and researchers as well.
The symposium is well organized. It's in terms of networking, I've met quite a lot of experts, people with experience in the area that I'm coming from. So it's really quite interesting, and I'm really learning a lot. The environment is chilled and comfortable. I've gained a lot to say because the presentations that I've attended I've learned how people are doing monitoring in different countries. So looking and learning on how they do things really is giving me a lot of insight when I go back home on what I have to change in our maybe monitoring strategy and maybe how we can manage our aquifers better. And yeah, it's really a lot of knowledge that I'm getting. Yes, I have attended the 18th Symposium, which took place last year in Namibia, Swakopmund. And yeah, I might say I think this is more attended than the last year's one. More countries are represented here, and I think it's quite bigger and better. I think it only gets better every year. My expectations were really to learn and see how things are done in other countries. Because I'm coming from a dry country where managing and assessing of groundwater resources is so important. So when you come to a platform like this where you can really learn and where you can see how things are done to improve your management and assessment, it's something extraordinary, and I believe my expectations have been met because so many presentations are talking and are addressing this issue.
Well, yes, as I said, I think it's the basis to say, well, we have to improve on what we have done already, because always after the symposium, the papers are going to be previewed and they go through a process of really reviewing seriously, and they can go to a journal. And obviously this is a record of what we have achieved in 1 year. And each year we have in a symposium, again, the paper will be reviewed properly, and they go, or referred properly, they go into a journal, a technical journal. So all these are records of achievement. I think these are good indicators that we're still interested in this activity. I think it would be nice if we pull our socks and move forward again. So to me, I think, yeah, we just have to push and put more effort, and our government should put more effort to support this initiative, which is supported all along for a long time by our developed partners. Yeah.
So I think I would like to see them continue, and I hope that we can. I think the strength of the symposium is shown in the way that it's almost self-supporting. If we had no sponsorship for the symposium from core funders, it would still continue. And I think it's created a strong enough reputation that it can continue for many years. And the model where it rotates between different host countries, I think, is also important, rather than having it established in one place every single year, which may be cheaper, but actually is, it just highlights the participation of the different member states in the network.
I think the success is in the very fact that WaterNet conference is become a global brand, right? So the conference sort of sells itself in terms of subscriptions for people who are going to attend, and the very fact that we've got partners like GWPSA, WARFSA, and WaterNet, obviously, and other partners like NEPAD Sanwat, who sort of provide a guarantee of numbers of students, and also, other partners who they feel will be part and parcel of, the conference itself. For me, that is the biggest success. WaterNet comes from a time where, maybe self-funding itself was something that would have been not heard of. We always expected that a foreign financier would provide everything, but now I can see that there's a bit of maturity, there's a bit of people taking over responsibilities in terms of partially financing themselves, and also the willingness to participate in a conference like this of this magnitude. I think the biggest challenge has been people dynamics, right? Some people want to ride on other people. They don't want to participate effectively to deliver a common goal. So might have, maybe brushed shoulders with people like that, but I think, that is a weakness, people dynamics.
I think the symposium is heading into the right direction. As I've said, last year's one was a bit smaller in comparison to the countries that are represented here. So I believe in the future more countries will be represented and more issues will be brought upon when it comes to assessing and managing our groundwater resources and our water resources. And I only see more better and more promising results from the future symposiums.
But what would be great is if, as regional people, in the now 16 member states at least of SADC, if we could start owning the symposium and contributing to the sustainability of not only the symposium but to WaterNet. This is something that was keenly supported and they're still committed. The Dutch government has supported WaterNet since its inception, and WaterNet is an entity in its own right now. And as a regional entity, as a SADC subsidiary institution, we really need to, as member states, be supporting. If we value this organization, if we value this network, if we believe as member states that it's adding value to our work in the region, we really should be investing in this network and in this event that brings everyone together and just solidifies those partnerships.
I think, to me, the symposium going ahead needs to come to a point where, first of all, we are communicating effectively the results coming out of the conferences. We must set an agenda that each particular symposium meeting will look at in terms of what they want to achieve at the end, right? Instead of, setting a theme for a conference, it's good and it's something that almost all conferences do, but we must also set an agenda of what should come out from these kind of meetings, so that when we come out from there, we must now find a way of transferring this information, communicating it to people who are that, the bottom level there, the implementers. How are we transferring that information? So I think going forward, I think WaterNet Secretariat needs to think about possibly giving a permanent position to a communicator, that whose sole responsibility will be to translate what is coming out of these conferences into all SADC member states, right? And in so doing, we ensure that it does not only remain an academic process where only academicians can share interesting research, but also we're translating it into useful things for the community.
So with regard to the symposium, or maybe I'll start off to say, if you look at it in terms of alumni participation, especially within WaterNet itself, I think the current secretariat is the biggest example of that, because the manager and the programs manager are both, programs coordinator are both WaterNet alumni. So already within WaterNet, in terms of what steers WaterNet from day to day or runs WaterNet from day to day basis, are WaterNet alumni themselves. But in terms of the symposium, I think previously and even with this current one, so you've got alumni, like I said, it's a program that's been running for the past, since 98, so that's nearly 20 years, so 20 years at least. So you have people that are in different positions and have been part of the local organizing committees in different countries, and they have chaired sessions, they have rapporteured sessions, they have been presenters, So also you're looking at it in terms of the platform the symposium provides for, especially emerging researchers, and that's most of the times fresh graduates. So you have alumni at different, playing different roles within the symposium. So as presenters, for example, like this year we have more than 10 alumni that are presenting different papers. supported through various mechanisms. Going into the future, I think one has to look at it in terms of an increased role for the alumni, apart from chairing and rapporteuring, but also playing a very prominent role in terms of the local organizing committees and also trying to resource and showcase themselves. The Symposium is the biggest platform for WaterNet in terms of showcasing alumni activities and alumni expertise. And then more broadly in terms of the alumni and their role maybe within the region. Currently, you have a lot of alumni that are in very prominent positions in the region's water sector, and that includes, serving on the Water Resources Technical Committee of SADC itself, serving as commissioners in river basin organizations and representing their countries there, and serving in international organizations, for example, the Global Water Partnership Southern Africa Executive Secretary is an WaterNet alumnus. So you do have a lot of people that are in very influential places that have come through the program and that are currently making a very huge impact in the water sector in the region, not just in government, but also in academic circles and international organizations. So looking into the future, it's about how WaterNet therefore harnesses these expertise of these trained personnel, experts in their own fields, and how this can add value in terms of the sustainability of the program, and also looking at it in terms of the value and the ownership of the program beyond WaterNet providing scholarships to the region itself, owning the program and funding its own people to be trained, because every day we speak about capacity deficit, and we speak about the need for trained expertise in the water sector. There has been a program running that has the fruits to show. It has the experts to show, and this is in different places within government and within the international water sector. SADC being the biggest beneficiary as a region. So it's to look at it in terms of regional ownership of the program, and therefore looking at the alumni as a flagship and more being representatives of capacity building initiatives in the region that actually has shown the fruits. It actually has shown itself to work.
I think for me, definitely, I think organization always is key. I always say that excellence starts with organization. So, once our organization runs smoothly, it means that, the process is going to run smoothly, and it encourages other people to attend our conference as well. In the future, what would I like to see? I would like us to see us not working on the same issues all over again, sort of moving on from the basic issues and then having more high-level research. I would also like to see more collaboration, more use of innovative ideas and technology, and more sharing of data. I think one of the presentations on SDGs, the speaker highlighted the fact that we don't share data, so even if we're collecting it, we're not sharing it, but data helps us to make really good decisions. So more data collection is very, very key, so I would like to see information coming out of that. And then I would also like to see more industry partners in our program. I think right now it's highly academic, and it could obviously be because of the situation. We might not have a lot of industry partners that might want to take part, but we have to have that bridge. I think it's important when we talk about industrialization, when we talk about innovation, we want to see more industry come in. We also want to see lots of private public enterprises as well, because that helps to solve problems that are happening. So from that perspective, definitely I would like to see a more diverse audience in attendance, and also in terms of the presentations. That being said, also I'd like to see the young scientists who start off as masters and PhDs, then taking over and becoming project leaders, and seeing them harness their own research skills and starting their own groups, and then to see the older academics and the older generation giving back in other positive ways, but making space and room for young academics to grow.
If we're looking forward seriously sustainability, I think the best is to our government also to take the initiative to sponsor students and also to sponsor any other research which is required in this area. And that includes the Symposia, because they can contribute whatever they can contribute. For example, if we're in Zambia, maybe the government of Zambia can contribute something to make sure that the Symposium is going on well, and next year is somewhere else, and health countries should also try to prepare properly and also contribute to the actual implementation of that exercise.
I see a future in which it is continuing in a different form. So it will evolve and become relevant and operate as the times will require. For example, the funding issue, like I said, we are donor supported, we are heavily donor supported. Not only that, we have a very narrow base of base support as well. So I can see states playing a bigger role. So WaterNet is going to have to reformulate, rearrange itself to give space for regional support and for the states in the SADC and Southern Africa to be in Eastern Africa to be able to support it. So I can see that these two will continue together into the future, definitely.
The 19th WaterNet conference, right here where we are, is under a very interesting theme. And it is integrated water resources development and management. If that is very difficult, we can simplify it and say managing water in a changing environment for future in Eastern and Southern Africa. Already that opens up a lot of discussions. Already this theme is suggesting that the resource for which we are to superintend and plan, we have not inherited it from our forefathers. We have borrowed it from our future generations. And I think it is very much simplified. And if that be the case that we have borrowed it from the generations that are going to come after us, then we've got to start managing it and planning for it far much better than we have planned before.
To the sponsors of the WaterNet program, we are ever grateful. You sought to invest in what at the time may have seemed insignificant, but we now know was the future. Today, society is realizing that water is the most precious resource. From its inception, the WaterNet program has trained more than 20 Zambians who are currently serving both at national and international level. As a country, we are grateful for the scholarships. Ladies and gentlemen, we also wish to express our gratitude from the regional perspective that the course enabled us to network with various experts in the water sector. And this has been a positive impact on our career development. And if you want to join the WaterNet family, you must be highly motivated in solving the water management challenges, and being involved in this will show you the many issues surrounding our vital and most important commodity. And we also would like to acknowledge that being recipients of this scholarship gave us a great platform to interact with people of diverse backgrounds and culture. In conclusion, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to everyone present for the perfect logistical support which has made this event a success, and on behalf of all the WaterNet alumni present here and others that are not present, for the enormous cooperation in organization of the past and present symposium.
No matter where you go, remember the road that will lead you home. No matter where you go.
This is the second time I'm attending WaterNet. Firstly, it was in Botswana, and then here, I'm very excited. And thank you so much to my supervisors for believing in me. University of Zululand, South Africa, you are well represented. Thank you so much.
That will lead you home.
Of course, the intention of this symposia that we've had over the years is to make sure that whatever research work, whatever new discovery, whatever new knowledge that is being generated, it's made known to the public. So we are not going to stop our journey now. The journey is continuing. After this 19th WaterNet Symposium, we look forward toward the 20th WaterNet Symposium that is scheduled to take place in Johannesburg, South Africa. And you are talking about 20. It's a good number. It's a big number. We are going to celebrate 20 years of a journey where we have learned what is working and what is not working. Not to preempt what we are going to learn from the 20th Symposium, but what is certain is that whatever we do will be judged to be a success only if we are contributing towards unlocking the potential of water resources. But that unlocking can only be translated if we see a change in people's livelihood on the ground.